So I've listened to a handful of your podcasts,
Uh-huh.
all of them. You start differently every time, but because I'm more nervous about this than you, I'm going to start with the questions.
Okay.
You've done that a few times.
Okay.
I don't know if that's your preferred method, but I'm going to because
Okay. That works.
it'll lull me into hopefully.
Are
a
these
place
all
of
your
relaxation.
questions, or are these the ones from Instagram?
These are from Instagram.
Okay.
Mixed with other questions.
Do I get to know who they are?
If you want to.
Of course.
Nah. You have to guess. We'll say that.
Will you tell me after I answer them? Will you tell me who it is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I guess. Maybe.
Well, because I'd like to address them if it's applicable to them.
Okay. So the first question, you're going to have no idea who this is from. If you could call one friend to help you land a commercial airline.
John.
Do you think you could do it?
So he actually asked this to Brandon, but he asked it while we were recording, so I never got it in time. So I thought about how I would answer that one, and he actually sent a text afterwards like, hey, did you ask him this? So I think it's called, is it like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people overestimate their ability to do things that they have no experience doing?
Like
so
when people watch the Olympics and they're like,
yeah,
that can't be that hard.
Yeah,
Curling, I could probably beat someone at curling.
Yeah, they had one in like a field goal, right? Some college kicker missed a field goal. It might have been a pro kicker. And so all these tweets came in of like, how could you miss that? I could make that. And so they had them come out and it was like a 47-yard field goal. And they're like not even close. And so I don't think there's any way that I could land a commercial airline, even with John in my ear. And it's funny because today I was just kind of scrolling through Shorts or TikTok or something, and there's a video of like a 13-year-old girl, or no, she was 17. A 17-year-old girl lands like this really small plane under the direction of the tower and everything, and the landing gear wasn't coming out. But she was like, she had been learning how to be a pilot, and so she at least had some experience with that. And it's a small aircraft, and she lands it, and it just kind of like skids to a stop. And I was like, a commercial aircraft, like how big those are? And John spent like years training on smaller planes before they even let him, and it wasn't straight to a real plane. It was like a simulator for months and then the real plane. So I was like, yeah, there's no chance. Like, not just all the dials and the things that are going on, but the weight of that plane, any wind. I don't think there's any chance that I could do it.
Really?
Like, I think that I could crash land it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would
like that's
murder
I guess
everybody.
That's the question. Like, are people going to live if you crash, if you land that thing?
Man, I think it really depends on like what the weather is like. Because if it's relatively calm and it's a straightforward procedure, then I could probably crash land the thing. But even then, like I think of like tennis, right? So when I play tennis, and I'm not even great at tennis, but when I play tennis, there are these like micro movements that I make with my hand on a shot, depending on what I want to do with it. So if it's a forehand, I can tilt the racket, and I don't know if the racket's either like straight up or you can kind of angle it in a certain level or angle it out depending on what spins you're wanting to do on it. And there are these like micro movements that are happening in my hand. And so now I think of like the yoke of a airplane, and in my mind, like on TV, you just see them like moving it all around and it's no big deal. But there's got to be like some micro movements that are happening there that are really important when you're dealing with, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like the commercial ones are easier than the smaller ones, but it seems like I would not be in a good spot.
So I was so afraid of, I like get freaked out every time I get in a plane.
Yeah.
Like anxiety, don't want to do it. So I don't fly that often.
Do you take medication for it? Like, do you take?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I hate flying.
But I hate it.
Yeah.
I think like, to me, every time I get in it, I'm like, this is magic.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense why this thing's so big and in the air. This is just witchcraft.
Yeah.
And so I took an aviation science class in college, did well, still think it's magic.
Yeah.
It still just absolutely should not fly.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you. Like there's no way I could clamp that thing.
Like your windows, even like when you're landing, you're tilting the nose up, so you can't even see. Like you can't even see the ground at that point.
Oh yeah, it's magic.
I think there's no chance.
Yeah.
So John, you're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Is that from John?
No, that was actually no. Surprising that no, not John.
That was someone stranger who.
Okay. If you could have a conversation with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Can I do both?
Sure.
So a live person and a dead person. I think the live person would be Roger Federer. Like, he's my all-time favorite athlete, period. And then also just as a human being, he seems like a really cool guy and just really nice and kind. And there's been a lot of stuff that he's done. And again, it's all kind of a persona that who knows if it's curated or not. But he seems like a genuine, really nice person in a sport that I'm obsessed about, and specifically with him. So live person, I would want to talk with him. I'd probably just drool the whole time and just be like,
That's the thing.
Just touching him.
You're so calm and collected when you have random athletes that had their careers end like junior year of high school. But when you had Roger Federer on this podcast, how would it go?
I would try to figure out how to ask questions that not everybody has asked, because I feel like everybody asks, tell us about this Wimbledon title, your first one or your last one, or all of these things. And I try to figure out, like, I don't know, I actually would take time to think of this, but I would ask him questions that would try to make him laugh and kind of more behind the scenes stuff of what we don't know about the life of tennis players.
Okay.
Because there's a lot. I mean, like, before you become, if you're not in the top, I don't know, probably 30, you're really not making a lot of money. And so the cost to actually go places, stay in hotel rooms or stay in somebody's apartment that lives in that city, or whatever you can do to scrounge up and save money, plus the team you have to pay and the feet. Like, I don't know, we've played in tournaments just throughout our lives where it's a long tournament or even man games. Like, I busted my toenail in this last one before the last event. And if they do that in tennis, and I've done that in tennis, like, it's like, it doesn't matter. You got to play the next match. And if you lose that match, you got to fly across the country and you got to play another tournament. So I feel like the wear and tear and the amount of shoes you go through, I don't know. I think that would be kind of interesting to learn about.
The toe thing your excuse on why we beat you so bad in
No,
okay.
no, you guys.
It was me.
You were unstoppable. Like, we just couldn't find an answer for you.
Thank you.
And so it was just tough.
Dead?
Dead person, I would probably say Jesus, but not for like, I would want to be like, I don't know how to phrase this. So my understanding of Jesus is the Jews had, I mean, think of like Old Testament stuff, and they had all of these traditions. And Jesus basically comes and says, you're doing it wrong. Like, yeah, I'm going to fulfill this, but like, hey, how many steps can we take? What can we eat? Is it okay to eat on the Sabbath? What about this woman who's caught in adultery? Should we kill her? And he's like, you guys are missing the point. And so I feel like now 2023 years later, religion, specifically Christianity, I kind of feel like it's the same thing. I feel like it's gotten to the point where it's like, well, we read this, we interpret it this way, and so everybody else is going to hell. And I just want to sit down with him and be like, what was it really like? Like, what do we really need to worry about here? And are we missing the point still?
Go through point by point, every political thing. He'll be like,
yeah. Would you vote for? Yeah.
Do you think, going with Jesus, how good do you think his sense of humor is? Do you think it would be tip top? Do you think it would be?
I think he would probably be able to deliver the best jokes of anyone.
Okay.
Because again, like he didn't, this is just what we have from the Bible, right? So I'm completely extrapolating things here and making assumptions, but he didn't take things so seriously in certain instances where he was just like, relax, stop being so uptight about this and just be nice to each other. Like, if you could just be nice to each other, you're good.
Yeah, it's done.
It's like, well, what if they're gay? And it's like, be nice to each other. Like, I don't know. I think that would be interesting to hear. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he would be the exact opposite, but that's where I'd want to kind of like from the source.
Hopefully it's as simple as you, I agree. Hopefully it's as simple as you believe it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like, again, I don't mean it in like an affirmation of a religion that I've been in or not been in. I just kind of like that individual character in history is kind of a big deal. And so to see what he was really like as a person.
It's a good one. If you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would it be?
Hang out with JD more.
Oh, that's a 20-year-old JD. Not someone to hang out with.
20 years old. This is coming from a mid-30s now, so I'm still not that experienced. But I would probably say, like, relationships at this point in my life are where I think my purpose is, and building relationships with people, like meaningful relationships, not just work or not just kind of that higher level, surface level relationships. And so as a 20-year-old, I think that relationships are huge, not just in getting where you want to go or succeeding or whatever it is, but that relationship that I would have with my spouse, the relationships with kids, relationships with parents is something that I think I've actually gotten stronger with over time since 20 years old. I think I have a stronger relationship with my parents now. And then friends, obviously, employment, all of that stuff, just your career opportunities for me expanded really quickly once I started making certain relationships. And so I think that my 20-year-old self should focus more on finding the good in people and trying to understand people and be friends with as many people as possible.
So with that, so you specifically said with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So is it becoming a parent that made you change that, or is it just age, or what do you think made you value that relationship more?
Well, so 20-year-old Erik was in the middle of Russia. So I was away from home for 2 years. And I went there when I was 19, so just after high school and our teenage I was the stereotypical teenager of I'm smarter than my parents. So for 2 years of kind of taking care of myself. And then at that time, we had emails and then we could call twice a year. And now, like, the missionaries that I see at this point, I mean, they're on Facebook all the time. So it's complete. Well, it's just different. And so my dad wasn't, I think he's smart enough, but he just didn't want to email. He liked writing. And so I would write letters and he would write back. And so I remember the very first, so I went to Russia. I was there for probably 3 months, and then it was Mother's Day. And he hadn't received the letters that I had written yet. So it had been 3 months where he hadn't heard from me, even though I had sent them, because in ours, it was like this batch system. So every 6 weeks, we would send the batch of letters up to the mission office. And then that time from the mission office from Russia to America took time. So it had been like 3 months since he heard from me. So I get on the phone on Mother's Day and he's like, Erik, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you writing me? Like, this is not right. I was like, I've sent you at that time probably like 12 letters. Like, I've sent a bunch. And so it just kind of really flipped the script for me of like, wow, like my dad is genuinely concerned about me, not just because I'm in Russia, which has its own problems, but like now I think of my kids, and if I haven't heard from them for 3 months, like I'd be terrified. So then I come home and I realize like, man, doing my laundry sucks. And they did it for me my whole life. And then like after I got home, and then once I started getting like a career, so my dad and I go to lunch every Wednesday, just like clockwork. And every once in a while we'll miss one for whatever reason, but for the most part, we go to lunch every Wednesday and just talk about stuff. And then my mom, she's become like the grandma to my kids and stuff. The kids love her. So again, like I think becoming a parent really helped the relationship with my mom. And then just seeing how much my dad cared for me helped that relationship, being away from him for a long time.
So I was going to wait for this, but now it feels like a better time. So you have I've met your dad.
Yeah.
He comes to every time we're in a old man's league or anything, your dad's there. I don't think there's any other parent that shows up consistently.
Yeah.
Your dad gives me tips, which I appreciate.
Whether you want them or not.
Yeah. But you have a special relationship with your dad. He was always there. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I don't. This is like, I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but so my dad was married before, and he had 2 kids, and that marriage didn't work out. And he'll admit this; it was his fault. Like he did stuff that broke that up. And then those 2 kids ended up moving across the country to Ohio. And they ended up getting adopted. His ex-wife got remarried, and then that man adopted the kids. And then he came into a relationship where he and my mom got a little too familiar with each other and found out that she was pregnant, and that's why they got married. And I was a complete accident.
Me too. We can
perfect
bond.
But it seems like with that, it seems like in his mind he was like, this son is going to be my chance to fix things, like to do it right. And whether he did or didn't, and I mean, he was so involved in my life. And at the time, I hated it. I mean, it was just every little thing. He was trying to perfect me in a way in his vision of what was right and wrong. And so every sport, he was my coach, all growing up until I got into high school. And hyper involved. And I look back at that now, and normal for all of us. I think we might have talked about this on the Matt Pace podcast, but normal, I think, for everybody is so different. And so for me, that was normal. And my dad, he owned apartments, he owned real estate, so he didn't have a 9-to-5 job. He could be home whenever he wanted to. And so he never missed a practice, he never missed a game. He still comes to games, whatever that is. And so I really appreciate, again, looking back now, because I do work pretty significant hours. I know you work significant hours. And so, and I have 3 kids where it's like, if I spend time with one of them, then the other 2 are like, hey, I want time. And I don't have all the time in the world to spend as much quality time as my dad did in teaching me every sport and everything that was around. And so, yeah, sports wise, we butt heads a lot, hanging out with friends. I just think he was really genuinely worried about losing his son. And I have that right now too with my kids. Like, my biggest fear is that I'm going to get a call of like, hey, there's been an accident and your kids are gone. And I think that he felt that too. So even like hanging out with friends too late or whatever it was, like in my mind, it was he wanted to control me and he didn't want me to have fun. And he was like my worst enemy. But now I'm like, no, like I don't know. My perspective changed. So, and luckily he's still in a flexible arrangement, and I am too, to where we can just go to lunch every week and hang out.
You have your yearly golf. I mean, you go more often, but you have your August or September.
Yeah. So Wasatch Golf Course is our favorite course when the leaves are changing specifically. And this was the first year we didn't, because he's getting older and he doesn't enjoy it as much. His back and stuff hurt him. So we do other things though, and we'll go drive and look at the leaves and just kind of hang out and talk. So yeah.
So him being at everything and wanting to be a part of that, how does that affect how you're parenting your kids? Because I think that obviously plays a role. My dad was a great dad, but he worked a pretty normal 9-to-5 and couldn't make everything.
Yeah.
So you are now in a more normal job, 9-to-5. He was in a position where he could make his schedule work with whatever was your schedule.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance those two worlds as a parent now?
I've been lucky because my kids enjoy things, but they're young enough now to where it's not taking up so much time. I mean, like once we get into, I think for you and I, once we got into like junior high, probably late elementary school, maybe, we started to get serious, like really serious about what sports we wanted to play. And so it was happening all the time. My kids aren't there yet. There are sports that they enjoy recreationally, but they aren't playing to where they're like, I want to be. My goal as a 6-year-old was to play in the NBA. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I've got Michael Jordan stuff all over the place here, but like that's what I wanted to do. So he was supportive of that. My kids aren't there yet. They enjoy stuff. And the way that that's impacted me. So Jared played baseball with Taylor Dance, who was at Man Games. He's played on basketball teams like junior jazz teams. And I'm there, but I have avoided being the active coach on those teams because I don't want to be that guy. And then same thing, like Taylor Dance with baseball specifically. I went up to him at the beginning of the season and I was like, look, if you need help, boss me around, tell me what to do. I'm never going to come up to you proactively and say, I think you're doing this wrong, or I think you should do this. I don't want to be that guy. So if you need help, I'm there, but I'm just going to sit back here and then Jared and I, outside of regular practices and games, like we'll shoot in the front yard or we'll throw baseballs or go hit or whatever else it is. But I'm trying to be a little bit less intense than my dad was, not because, again, our relationship is great now, but I kind of want like Jared to come to that conclusion. I want Noelle to come to that conclusion, and Claire's 4, so she's too young to really know what she wants. But
Claire.
Yeah.
So there's 2 stories that I want you to tell from exactly what you talked about. So there's one that happened, I think you said like 6 years ago. I think we all remember Steph Curry had this viral video that went live, and he made, I think, 95 out of 100 threes.
He was 94.
94 out of 100 threes.
Yeah.
And so you texted your dad that night that you saw the video, that morning?
It was probably like that week. Yeah, it was probably that week. And I was playing basketball more regularly then, so that influences this. And then there was a church, again, this is like probably deeper than you need to know, but he owned some apartments on it's called Truman Avenue in Salt Lake City. And his dad built the place. And so it's been in the family forever. My dad was actually born in this building, right? And so then they turned it into a duplex, and then they built another sixplex on the lot. So it's changed since then, but he was born in, so it's been there forever. So the ward there, the church building there with the gym, I've been there a ton. And when he got divorced from my mom, and after I left for those 2 years and came back, he was living in, that was always where his office was anyway. But once the divorce happened, that's where he lived. And so it was like free access to a gym anytime I wanted. And so I saw that video, told him about it. And so it's in a gym, nobody's around, no cameras are around. It's in a gym that I've played in a lot. I'm very familiar with it. And so I was like, let's figure this out. Like, let's see what I would do. Let's see how I would do in this. And so it doesn't have the NBA line, but I scooted back to where I felt the NBA line, what we've played in what is now the Vivint or whatever. So I've played in NBA courts. So like, I think here's the line. And so, yeah, I tried it and I did pretty well.
How well?
I think it was 95.
95.
Yeah. So
how many attempts did it take you?
It was the first one.
Yeah.
It was genuinely the first one. But I couldn't do that now. And again, it's way different. There's no way that I'm in the same world of shooting as Steph Curry. But so in that instance, I was hot and I just made a bunch of shots.
So the main thing that I want, like, people to, the only opportunity I wanted, like, the thing that I want to come across right here when I'm interviewing you, there's two things that I want to come across. One, you're the most kind person I've ever met, that you care about others more than anyone I know, and you'll do anything for them. But two, while you look like an average dad, like average Utah Mormon
I'm
dad,
really a horrible dad.
You are an incredible athlete. And like, everyone that goes to Man Games understands that, but people don't really get that until they've experienced you playing with them and know that you have a completely different level than the rest of us good athletes have.
I don't know how I would describe that though, right? Because I don't think that I'm big. I'm not fast. I'm not strong. I'm not quick. And so like, when we talk like athletes, I don't know, like, I do consider myself a better than average athlete in terms of like, if we're going to go play a sport outside of skiing and snowboarding and water skiing, like those, skateboarding, like those kind
of mountain biking.
But if it involves a ball and throwing and catching, then I feel pretty confident in myself, or hitting, like baseball, tennis, ping pong, pickleball, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the second story that I wanted you to tell is there's a trophy over here, 1999.
Oh, yeah.
You went to an event.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big trophy. I don't know if people can see it, but it's quite large for a trophy that you would have got when you're 10.
Is it 99?
Yeah.
So I was born in 88. So I was probably 10 turning 11. Yeah, it would have been 10 turning 11.
And what did you win the trophy for?
It was the 2-ball national championship. So back in the day, they had 2-ball as an event during All-Star Weekend, and you've played it. We've had it at Man Games before. So for the Utah people, Karl Malone was in it, and then like I remember Portland, like Clyde Drexler, and they had like different people. I think Portland won it at the one, but so they had a local event here at Cottonwood Heights Rec Center where all these kids would just come and play. And so you have 1 minute and there's a song, which is fantastic. And there are different spots on the floor. So really close, there are two 2-point spots. There's a 3-point spot at the free throw line. There's a 5-point spot at like the free throw line extended, a 7-point spot on the baseline, and then an 8-point spot that's a 3-pointer just kind of off the wing a little bit. And so you have a minute. You and another guy have a minute to score as many points as you can. And so in Cottonwood Heights, me and a buddy, Steve Mundy, we played on the same team, junior jazz. His dad was best friends with my dad, and so we grew up playing together. And so at that Cottonwood Heights thing, we put up this score that was just ridiculous. And so we thought that was the end. Like, we won the Cottonwood Heights contest. And it was like, great. They probably gave us like a certificate or something. And so then we got this call saying, hey, your score was the highest in Utah, and there's a regional competition that's Utah, Wyoming, I think it was Idaho, and Colorado. So those 4 states, it was us and another team that had the 2 highest scores. And so we're going to have you 2 teams compete at halftime of a Jazz game, and you're going to go out on the court, and same thing, I was all set up. And so
I didn't know this part.
Yeah. So that was the next round. And so, yeah, they were from Wyoming, I think. And so we play them. And that was really cool because it's halftime, but it was kind of towards, it was to where the players weren't coming out yet. There's still enough people in the audience there where there's noise being made. And so there's this whole countdown where it's counting down 3, 2, 1, as you know in the song. And so Steve shoots a shot and he's like running to get the rebound. It's 3, 2, 1. He throws it all the way across the court to me at that 5 spot. I shoot it, ball's in the air, buzzer goes off, goes in. And then the whole, at the time it was the Delta Center, now it's Vivint. The whole Delta Center of who's still there at halftime like goes nuts. And so I'm like losing my mind. Like this is the coolest experience for a 10-year-old kid or whatever I was. And so we demolished that team. And then nationally, so the Western Conference of the NBA, all of the teams in states in the Western Conference, apparently we had the highest score in the country of all of the Western Conference teams. And so I can't remember if it was my mom or dad, one of my parents got a call and like, hey, this is the NBA and we would like to invite you to the finals for the national championship for 2-ball for Erik and Steve to come do that. We'll fly you out. We'll put you up at a hotel. I mean, they picked us up in a limo. Franco Harris is there. Ricky Williams at the time is staying in the same hotel. Summer Sanders is the host of the event. So it's on Nickelodeon. It's nationally televised on Nickelodeon cable, whatever. Robert Ory is our coach. Mitch Richmond was the coach of the East. And so they had they had boys, they had girls, and then they had co-ed finals, right? So we went up, the team that we had to go against was from Atlanta. And so we do they bus in all these kids. It's in San Antonio, which is why I was a huge Spurs fan for most of my life. It's in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. And Summer Sanders again is the host. And it's like humid as can be. All these kids are bussed in to cheer on, all these cameras and stuff. And so they're like, we want to do a practice run so that everybody can see what's going on. So the kids know what's happening. And so they have us do the practice run. And the age division was like 9 to 11. And so the team from Atlanta was older than us. And I remember thinking how cool they were because they were like bigger, stronger. You can see in the video, like they're bigger, a lot bigger than us. And so we do this practice run, and I think we missed one shot the entire time. And so after that, everyone's like,
it's the team beat.
What is happening? And so in our final round, I think we missed 2 shots. So our final round, we put up this ridiculous score. We beat the other team soundly. Like we just demolished them. And so we win the national championship in 2-ball. And then we went to the final, game 1 of the finals with the Spurs against the Knicks back in 99. I think it was that lockout season, so it was shortened. But yeah, that's the story.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's peak Erik career. It has to be.
It was awesome. That was over the summer, like the next year going into 5th grade or whatever it was, like all these people, hey, I saw you on Nickelodeon. It's like, it was like the coolest thing for a 10-year-old to experience.
10-year-old, 15-year-old, 20-year-old, 34-year-old. That would be the most cool experience I had ever had.
It's a lot of pressure too. Like, I don't know, like at halftime at the Delta Center, like that was a lot of pressure. Halftime of a Jazz game. And then in front of all these kids that are screaming and yelling, and Robert Ory is there. Like I knew who he was, and Mitch Richmond, like I knew who they were for sure. And that was a lot of pressure, but
yeah,
we did pretty well.
That's great. Let's go back. What is your definition of success?
Great. This is like going deeper than I should again too. So back to my dad, every day from elementary school. So my cousin and I lived really close to each other. And so elementary school, after about the 3rd grade, we walked to school every day. And then once we got into middle school, he would drive us every day. And then high school, he would drive me until I got my license. And then once I got my license, then I could drive. But every day, I mean, every single day, whether he's driving me or whether I'm leaving home or whatever else, he would say the same thing. He'd say, do your best. Like that was his parting thing. So I'd get out of the car. Hey, Erik, do your best. Got it. Right. And then move on. So I think success for somebody is, did you do your best? And the president of our company asked me recently, he was like, do you like winning more or do you hate losing more? And I was like, I don't really think of it that way. I think of like, did I do my best? And so there have been games or matches or whatever else where I'll win, but I didn't play my best. I didn't really do my best. And that doesn't feel the same as a game where I lost, but I did my best. And so I think like success for me is, did you do your best? And if you can answer yes to that, then I think you're successful.
I don't have anything to say to that. That's great.
Thanks.
So we probably already hit this point, but this was a question that came in. Greatest sports moment of your life? If it's not you at 10 years old, then you've had a lot more successful of a career than I have.
I feel like it's kind of sad if like 10-year-old me is my peak.
National champion? Are you kidding me?
Oh, man. I'll probably do like the top 3. Well, that's even hard. It's hard to narrow it down. There are things that I'm very proud of athletically that I've done. So I think going to the point of what we were talking about a little bit earlier is I feel like I have a very broad skill set. So I was a state champion baseball player. And that was probably, if you ask my dad, that was my best sport up until I quit. So that one was pretty cool. So to have a state championship and a national championship, I think is pretty cool. What would be like another really good one? This is like and this is silly. It feels dumb to say it. One of them you were there. So 2A and 2B, I think, are both in men's league events where just out of high school, I played in the Mill Creek men's league. And at the time, it was different. Like it was all former college players for the most part. I mean, it was very, very intensely kind of what Taylorsville turned into there for a while. And now it's that
TS.
Yeah, the TS thing. So at the time, Mill Creek had really, really strong men's leagues with very, very good former college players and everything else. And so going into the last game, me and the guy on the other team that we played at the last game, we were 1 and 2 for the most points, like the highest scorers in the league, and then the most threes in the league. And so in that game, I don't think I showed up in pajama pants, but I think I had like 64. Like I had like 15 threes, and I just went off. And then I had a game winner. So it was just like time's counting down, like same thing. Ball goes up at the buzzer, guys in my face, hit a 3 to win the game and win the scoring title and win the 3-point title. And so the context of that, of like who was involved in that league, was important. Like if it was just some junior jazz thing, like we're all scrubs, it's not but the fact that everybody on both teams knew who each other was, and we knew we had to stop him and they knew they had to stop me, and to still be able to have like the game of my life was pretty cool. The other one was with you in that Taylorsville league. Same thing, like the semifinal game, they had former college players on their team, and then the final game they had like Utah State or wherever those guys played. Like they
had 4 guys that played for Utah State
And so like as you walk into the gym and you look at the 2 teams, you're like, oh, that team's going to win. Like nobody expected us to win either one of those games. And we did. And so that was cool. That was fun to watch. Like just with the guys that we had on our team and the chemistry and just the way that we played was really fun to experience that. So that's 2A and 2B.
I can talk about that one real quickly. So we won that semifinal game, wasn't very close. And then we were going to the championship game. This is one of the only adult events that my dad ever showed up to. And I remember my dad specifically when the other team was warming up going, oh yeah, this is done. And I remember.
Meaning like he thought we were going to win?
Oh, we were going to get our ass kicked.
Yeah.
And I remember the other team walking in because they didn't watch the semifinal game and them looking at us. And Erik, for anyone that hasn't played in a league with Erik, shows up in actual
polar bear
pajama pants.
If it's winter, it's cold. I got to keep my hands warm.
Yeah, got to keep them warm. And I remember this. I don't remember his name. He was probably like 6'9". Was
he the dark-haired guy or the blonde-haired guy?
Blonde-haired.
Yeah, blonde-haired guy. I didn't know him, but
he played at Utah State. I don't remember his name, but he was an unbelievable basketball player. And I remember him walking in and telling his buddy, I was like, "Oh, they won?" Like thinking that we had no chance. We only had 5 guys, and I'd like to say like I contributed a whole lot to this championship game because I hold it very fond in my memory. But it was another event where Erik saw that someone doubted him, and I think you had to have over 40 points that game.
I don't know, but we won, and that was great. Like it was. Why I'm proud of it is because we shouldn't have won. Again, like every position, they had somebody that was bigger than us, stronger than us, more experienced than us, whatever you want to call it. And they had another guy on their team who was probably 6'9" as well, and dark hair, really skinny, if you remember him. So back in 2011, actually, I played in a men's league against his team. And so I knew who he was, and he knew who I was. And so I remember them walking into the gym too, and he sees me. We kind of like make eye contact and just kind of like whatever, like a head nod or whatever. And so he goes up to his team, and I don't know what they were saying. I think you had overheard some of it, but he goes up and he points at me, and so I'm like, great. Like But at the same time, I'm like, he's saying like, watch out. In my mind, I was thinking that he was saying, watch out for this one. And so I was like, I like that. I like that kind of challenge of, I don't know, there's a motivational factor where if I can get motivated, it changes things for me. And if I don't, then.
And I took that personally.
I took that personally. Yeah. Making stuff up.
So what's one?
Number one would be Man Games. Like I genuinely am so proud of the fact that we're able to put together an event. And I'm not even saying like winning Man Games. I'm just the fact of like putting together Man Games and the sports and the environment and the actual event itself. I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of the people that have been involved, like yourself and many others who've helped with that. And then just organizing all of those events in such a short amount of time, especially considering what it started with. It's just been fun every step of the way. And I'm very proud of Man Games, Girl Games, just everything that we're doing, because now at whatever age we are, like to still have the opportunities, and I say it all the time, to feel pressure, to have those memories with friends, and then to meet new cool people from an athletics. Like all of my best friends I've met through athletics of some sort. So that's the way for me to meet people. And generally I'm an introvert that's forced to do extrovert things, but sports help break that wall down for me of let's play sports and get to know each other.
So I was going to go into this later, but so I've been there from the first Man Games.
Mm-hmm. Dude, you're one of the founders. We did it at your cabin.
Walk us through. I wanted you to walk people through kind of the origin of this entire thing and the different variations of it, because there have been.
Yeah. So originally, the people that were involved, you think of like myself, you, Donnie, John, Brandon was at the first one, Schicker, Brady, and Colby. So I didn't know Colby, but of everybody else, I basically grew up with all of them, excluding you and John, but I knew John very well. And then at the time I knew you very well too. And specifically with Donnie, with Schicker, with Brady, with all these people that I'd grown up with, we had played with each other and against each other for years in so many different sports. I mean, we hung out together, so there was always that. But then I played on the same team with Donnie ever since third grade all the way up until high school, and then middle school. And then we ended up going to different high schools, and so we played against each other. So, and then we played on the same team again in different like travel teams. So the question is always, which one of us is the better athlete? Like that's what goes through my mind, at least. And they probably don't even have this. They're probably just like, let's go have fun. But Erik's got this, like, I take that personally type of stuff. And I'm like, let's go into this. But
I highly doubt it, knowing Donnie and John as well as I mean, I don't know Donnie very well. I know John decently well. They think the same thing.
Well, and I think that's what's fun. And it's not a bad thing at all. Like my competitiveness isn't like, I'm going to kill this person. It's like, let's go do our best and see what happens. So I wanted to put together an event where all of us could see who the best athlete was. So we had ping pong, we had Halo, we had a 3-point contest, we had 4-on-4 basketball, pickleball, golf. And with that event specifically, with the 8 of us, I set it up to where, and I put this all in like a spreadsheet, and I did all this planning that was probably more than I should have done. But then I randomized it all. And so we did have kind of seeding when it comes to like golf and pickleball. But outside of that, it was just kind of randomized to where everybody got to play with everybody else and against everybody else. And we played poker. That was another one. So that's how it started, is just like, let's get together with a bunch of friends, take a weekend and go play all of the sports and activities that we all really like to do and make an event out of it. And then after that was over, I was like, well, I've played against all of them now. I kind of want to play with them in a different capacity and against them in a different capacity. And then let's open this up to other friend groups, because we think we're pretty athletic. I think, and John and I talk about this now too, of like our team that was at this last Man Games, I think it'd be really hard for a team to beat our team. You'll beat us in an event, but over the course of a bunch of different events, it's really hard to beat our team. And so we opened it up to different friend groups. So that started with a 4-on-4. And then I was like, well, 4-on-4 has its own dynamics and challenges. Let's do 2-on-2. And so you're part of that 2-on-2 one and what kind of sports you could do. So it's kind of evolved from a bunch of friends. We only did a 2-on-2 one year. The rest of the time it's been 4-on-4. And then every event, we kind of have staple events. So we have basketball in some form, whether that's a shooting contest, 3-point contest, or 3-on-3. And then we have golf. We have pickleball and spike ball as part of all of them. And then I try to mix up the events outside of that and have a new event at each one. So this one upcoming, I think we're going to do swimming. which I think will be fun.
A relay or
Yeah.
do you have to know certain strokes
No,
of swimming? Or
no,
does it
it'll
just
be
get to the one end as
the
fast?
best way that you can get from one end of the pool and back. So swimming, I think I want to try and pull off, and then kickball, I think I want to try and pull off. So we haven't done those before, and those would be two that I want to try and do.
Okay.
Does that answer it?
That answers it.
Good.
This was, so you, I don't know if it's you specifically. I've seen other podcasts, and maybe it's just me sending in the questions. But when people responded to you, they were a lot more serious questions. So I feel like people actually want to know things about you than.
I have a question for you, though, like if we want to get goofy here, because I've heard this before. So would you rather be a reverse centaur or a reverse mermaid? So you have the head of a horse and the body of a human, or you have the head of a fish and the body of a human.
Like, is the weight proportioned no matter what? Because like a head's like having like my legs not with the head of a horse. Like I feel like I'm going to always be falling down. But if you're saying the weight's proportion, probably a reverse fish mermaid.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know why.
That one makes me a little nervous because with human hands and feet, I feel like I'd be a really easy target in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
But with a horse, like I might be in like some zoo or carnival or something. I might not be.
That's true. Better life. People feeding you.
Just sharks would totally eat me if my fish was ahead and
But all the other horses are laughing at you.
all the other humans are laughing at me.
Humans are fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the horses are laughing at you for a very specific reason.
It's a good I mean, I haven't thought about this, but with the horse head, do I understand horse or do I understand human? It's another variable.
Both.
All right.
Fluent.
Back to the
bilingual.
Back to the real stuff.
What insecurities do you have that others wouldn't think you had?
I don't know. What insecurities don't you think I have?
I don't think you have any. You mentioned, but you did talk about that you think of yourself as more of an introvert than an extrovert. I wouldn't think that, knowing you. I think that especially in smaller groups, you always seem like people kind of gravitate towards you. And so I wouldn't think that would be an insecurity that you have. It seems like something that you've thought about.
Yeah, I think that, like, as just like a quick off the top of my head example, like the Tuesday night basketball that you've invited me to, right? Like, so I'll go to that, and I know you and I know Brett, and then outside of that, I don't know anyone. And so I'm not going to be the type that's going to be like going up and doing, like, talking to a lot of people or making waves or shooting every time I get the ball or like trying to dominate. Like, that isn't going to be my role. I'm going to kind of slink back and wait until I get to know people better. I think insecurity wise, like for better or worse, I genuinely care what people think about me. And specifically, like, I look at man games and girl games as going into that as my biggest stressor with that is that people aren't going to have a good time. And it's impossible to please everybody. And I get that. But I try. And so, like, I get feedback from man games and I need the negative feedback of like, hey, this didn't go well, or this didn't go well, or this was confusing or didn't come off right. And it's not that I'm mad at them, but it kind of comes back to me of like, why didn't I think of that? Like, why didn't I get in front of that to make that better? Kind of a perfectionist in a way mindset of, I just genuinely want to make the world a better place. I want people to be happy in my presence. I don't want to make people feel bad, which is weird because there are certain people in my life where I kind of go to kind of more of a personality and then others where I don't. But I don't know. I think that's probably as deep into my insecurities as I want to go.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. This one, you're never going to guess who it comes from, but what is more likely to be real? Nessie or Sasquatch?
We covered this on Brandon's.
Mm-hmm. We want your response.
I think it's more likely that some sort of a sea monster exists. Simply, again, to the fact that Brandon brought up of we just haven't been in 99% of the ocean. Like, we have no clue what's there. But there's been a lot of like stuff, and I don't know if it's Sasquatch or Yeti or what we want to get into, but in like the Himalayas and stuff, like there's a lot of sightings and stuff. But I think it's more likely that there's some sort of a sea creature that we just haven't seen before that's living in like the super deep depths of the ocean or something that is a freaky deaky looking thing and it just never surfaces. So
Fair enough. But I feel like a Sasquatch has already been around. So I'm going to tell you this, that it's already been around. Like, it's just a bear, but like you get those freaky tall people that are like 9 feet tall.
yeah,
Like, is that abnormal that you have a bear that's just like a little skinnier and
small bear.
like a tall, skinny bear instead of a kind of a more
I think
built
it's
bear?
probably closer to like an ape than it would be a bear.
That's a good call. Maybe one,
Maybe an ape and a bear got together.
you never know.
Crossbreed.
A liger, we've had
A
that.
liger could be a reverse centaur. Like, who knows?
Yeah. I think it's already happened.
Yeah.
What is your greatest accomplishment in life so far?
Oh, geez. I think probably convincing my wife to marry me would be up there, and then our kids. Like, I know that's like the opt-out answer, but I was telling a couple of people the other day, like, I think I had one of the best days of my life this last week. So my kids see that I'm on this podcast, and then like through my work, I have a decent size. I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, it's small, but in our little niche, it's a decent size YouTube channel. And so they see me on YouTube, and then they watch YouTube all day with their Minecraft people and stuff. They're like, oh, my dad's on YouTube. They think it's the coolest thing in the world. And so I brought them down here, and Noel did a little camera product review, and then Jared did a countdown of his 5 favorite Minecraft YouTubers. And so I just recorded them, and then I put it on YouTube. So they are on YouTube, and I made it so they like are showing it to their grandparents, and they're showing it to everybody like, I'm on YouTube. And they were so happy. Like, they were just so, and Noelle is watching Jared's, and she's like, that is so cool, Jared. Like, this is the coolest video I've ever seen. And then Jared's watching Noelle. That's so cool. They're just like being super nice to each other. And then like the next day, they have a little job where they go around to the neighbors and they take their garbage cans out and then bring them in. So they take them out the day before garbage day, and then they bring them back in. So the neighbors pay them like $5 a month, and then they'll like tip them and stuff. And so I pay them once a year. And so it was this, I paid them this last, totally, like the interest on that. So they both got $240 each this last week. And for a 9-year-old and now 10 and a 7-year-old, like their minds were just like, that's more money than they thought existed on earth. And so the 2 events this last week to happen, like one after the other, they were just in paradise. And so for like, that was really cool for me. And then Caitlin, like, she's way out of my league. I had a huge crush on her all through high school, and the fact that like she knew who I was, but she was not interested in me at all in high school. And then the fact that I was able to woo her.
She's into other JDs. Not this one. But
Lots of JDs. Yeah. And man games, girl games, probably.
That's top of the top.
Yeah.
Why do you love Sione, and what is your favorite part of Sione?
Oh, okay. So Sione married my niece, and so Haley was my first niece. She's not the oldest niece because her mom married somebody else who had kids. So, but she was my first niece. And I remember like as an 8-year-old, I was 8 years old when I became an uncle, and I took her to show and tell in the 2nd grade as a baby. So I bring her, like they get the permission, and she is my show and tell. So Haley, like as we've gotten older and stuff, I'm not a cool uncle. Again, the introvert part, like I'm not fun. I'm not good with like groups of kids and stuff. So, but Haley finding Sione, like that was a really cool story. And then growing up with Donnie as my best friend in that Tongan culture, and then Sione's Tongan. And so just like, oh, this is sweet. Like I get to get back into that culture again. And so Sione, I mean, you've met him. He's just the nicest guy in the world. He's super kind. He's just a great guy. So I really love Sione in that aspect. He's super athletic. He's got a highlight of him catching a game-winning touchdown. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, super cool. From Cooper Bateman, I think, who ended up going to Alabama. And so Sione's great. My favorite part of Sione would probably be his calves. He's got some good calves.
Yeah.
If I could have those calves, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good.
Oof. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd second that.
And those eyes, like you can get lost in his eyes, those deep brown eyes.
Yeah.
We could make a whole podcast about how awesome and attractive Sione is.
Like just body parts specifically, but then you get into like the other stuff of like, hey, I also help kids. And it's just like,
yeah.
oh, Sione.
He's
Thank
great
you.
at Call of Duty. He's great at
yeah.
Halo.
He's decent at Halo. I killed him.
Depends on which Halo.
That's true. I didn't get past
You
3.
need to tell the world about that. So apparently there are rankings in Halo, and you're a level 49 out of 50.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, for all the lady listeners of this podcast, I don't want to I'm married already,
Yeah.
so you can't come get me. But yeah, there's only 50 levels possible. I did get to a level 49 for a brief period, so you can't get much higher than that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, did I hang out with any girls in high school? No. It was basketball.
You were mastering your craft.
Yeah.
Master Chief.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, and I have a genuine appreciation for this, is people in their element doing really cool things. So I look at pilots, whether that's jet fighters or commercial airlines, or there are just so many nuances to things. And I was talking about this yesterday, I think, but when you and Matt that was the 2-on-2 man games, you and Matt were playing Halo against everybody else. And it was just a different world. I've played Halo, but the way that you guys with just micro movements are able to just get right where you're aiming, right on people's heads, and just the tactics and everything, I was like, that was really cool for me to see. I'm not a video gamer. I'm awful, as you've experienced, but seeing you guys in that element was really cool. So to see a level 49 Halo person going ham on everybody was really cool.
You probably had girls that you hung out with in high school, but we sat in a basement, had to be perfectly dark, and we mastered our craft of killing people online and yelling at other kids. So that's what we did.
It's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
And if that would have been a thing in high school, you'd be a multi-millionaire, because you could just stream it now, and you'd just be...
Yeah,
you would stream
ahead of my
so
time.
much. Yeah.
I was ahead of my time. Shoot.
You did. We were on the same Halo team at the original Man Games, though, and that, I think... Well, we switched. So I was on your team for one of them, which I think was Capture the Flag, and I almost sabotaged our team. But we won when we were on the same team for Halo. And then I switched and I was on John's team, who's also an incredible Halo player. And that was more of the Slayer. And so we won with John. And so you two are the two best Halo players, but I actually got more points in Halo than both of you, because I was on the other team.
How it worked. I remember John being very upset about that, because it was the difference between him winning man games and not winning man games.
Yeah.
But he was very upset about that. I mean, it didn't mean much to me, because fourth place is fourth place. But no, John was very upset about that.
Yeah.
I remember being very upset. That's when I decided that Brandon was my mortal enemy, because for a guy that is good at everything, he is unbelievably terrible at Halo.
I'm really bad at Halo too. And I paused the game right when they were about to score.
Yeah. Let me I gotta go down.
I was inverted, and I'm the worst player on the team. And they're like, pause everybody so I can switch my controller.
Yeah.
In the middle of the game.
Yeah. We almost didn't recover from that one. I remember that.
See, but you needed a motivation. I needed to get you motivated to do something special, and you came through.
Yeah. I take it personally.
You did fantastic.
I don't know how many more questions. You got a lot of questions. Yo, E, you were always too good at sports, even first and second grade, homie. Why you so good?
I don't know how to seriously answer that question, other than going back to what we talked about with my dad. Ever since I was a little kid, he just had me play every single sport. And he taught me well. So I was never a specialist in anything. And it was always you're going to get really good at a lot of different things. I don't know. Who is that? Can I know who that is?
Sure. Colton Brockbank.
All right. Thanks, Colton.
Yeah, you got it. This is another one that I'm not entirely sure what it means, but
okay.
When is the first Man Games Golf Edition going to happen with sponsors?
Do you know somebody who would be willing to sponsor that? Because I'm always looking for sponsors. So anybody listening that wants to sponsor Man Games. Golf Edition, I think we're trying, the original group, that 8 people, want to try to put together something this early February, and golf, and it would include pickleball. So it's not really out for the public. It's more of the OGs, if you will.
Just kidding. Why do you think golf is a good staple for Man Games specifically?
Golf is really cool because it gets the whole team involved in a way where, again, the 3 pillars of Man Games is you're going there to feel the pressure and to compete. You're going to make memories with your friends. So I want to focus on that one. And golf, the way that we've done it with scrambles and everything is you're there for 5 hours with some of your best friends. And even if you're bringing guys who you don't know on your team that are playing, like in your instance, you had Kyle coming on and then you didn't know him well. And then Carson didn't know Grant. And so for that 5-hour period in a pretty low pressure, fun event, you're able to bond and make memories and do everything else that way and kind of rely on each other. I know at least with our group, Brandon is an unbelievable golfer, but there are times where we're able to help support and we'll lift each other up. And if I can't hit a shot because I haven't slept in 3 days, then everybody else is really nice and kind of dragging me along. And so that's really fun. So, and golf is a way that you can, with shotgun starts and everything at golf courses, you can get a lot of people to do the same event and finish at the same time, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. When you said that you were supporting Brandon, all I could think about was me supporting Brandon and our first golf event together, where it was more like, "Hey, here's your Gatorade."
Yes, you ran in a couple putts.
Yeah, no, he gave him the read that he needed.
Yes, yeah, you showed him what not to do.
Yeah. Mortal enemy.
Yeah.
Top 3. This is probably one of my favorite questions.
Uh-huh.
Top 3 plays that you have been either a part of or seen of Man Games.
Justin Burke dunking on us was something that I hadn't experienced before at Man Games. I don't know that I've experienced that in my life, of somebody with a body on him physically, like not a clear lane, not a clear, like I'm going to get my steps right, go up. Like Donnie is bodying him. I'm taking a swipe at the ball. He goes up and just dunks it on us. And I know he dunked it on your team and others. So like that's up there. Like that was amazing. Other events, like this is hard too. Again, like seeing people in their element, like watching Carson play volleyball. This could be recency bias, but seeing like Carson play volleyball is really, really cool. And it's not like a specific play. It's just multiple. I mean, the set made all of it. I do need to put that out there. Whoever was setting Carson, like anybody can hit it that hard.
Yeah,
when you're
6'6",
that tall and you
jump.
can jump. So the set was probably the more beautiful aspect of that. But when he gets a hold of a volleyball, he's impressive to watch.
Yeah.
I'll just go off this most recent Man Games just because it's to rack my brain to go back far. I just don't know if I have the mental capacity. But when we were playing, this is back to basketball, we were playing Justin Burke and that team, and it was a very, very close game. And just the whole sequence, like I drove, I think it's on the highlight video. So I drove, do a little fake spin, come back, and then throw it to Donnie for a 3, and he hits the game winner, and we beat them. And we probably have no business beating them because I think physically they were very, very good, obviously with Justin. So that was just a sequence that in a sentimental way took me back to being on Donnie's team as a 3rd grader and like going back and like, I don't know, there are just people that you play with where you know where they're going to be, you know you can rely on them, you know all that. And so it just kind of all culminated in this like same play where we took down a team that we probably didn't deserve to take down. So that's, of this last Man Game, that's probably up there.
So has Donnie been on your team? I know he flies in every...
Well, he's been to 3.
Okay.
So he flew into the original one, and then he flew into the one
most recent
that I don't think you were at. Oh, so he's been to 4. You were having a kid, so you couldn't make one of the fall events, but he was at that one. So he's the original one, that fall event. He was at last year's where we had a different 4th, Jamel, and then he was at this one. So he comes to the fall event. He's been on my team on every fall event.
I was there with Jamel. Yeah. Tennis player.
Yeah, really, really good tennis player.
So, I mean, besides Donnie being an unbelievable athlete and just pretty decent at everything, mediocre at best, but decent. Like, what is it about having that friendship? He's probably your longest friend, right?
Well, Steve, who I mentioned with 2-ball, was probably like the longest tenured friend. He was born a month and a day after me. His dad was best friends with my dad. And so we still keep in touch. So he's probably like the longest tenured friend. But in terms of closeness and yeah.
So what continues to bring you guys together?
I don't know what continues to bring him into it. Like, I don't know what he gets out of this. But like I'm a hyper sentimental person. Like, more so than I probably should be in like a weird way. So Donnie, we got really close again in 3rd grade. We played on the same baseball team. And then I remember like, hey, do you want to have a sleepover, right? So like that's how it all started. Like, let's have a sleepover and go play. And so he had a little basketball court in the backyard of his house. I had a basketball court. We liked playing a bunch of different sports. He ended up coming and started playing on our basketball teams. And in that regard, we would play just as kids, but then in sports, we were always like going against each other. And so in practice, we're always guarding each other. And it was genuinely one of those things where like practice was harder than the games. And with my dad as the coach, Donnie got away with murder. Like Donnie could do whatever he wanted in practice against me. Like I'm bleeding, I'm hurt, and what foul? And then if I like breathe on Donnie wrong, then it's probably going to be a foul. But so there was this like competitive rivalry that was always friendly, which I think is great. And then as you like fast forward all through high school. So my parents got divorced when I was a junior in high school, and just my teenage angst, I was just like, this sucks and I hate everybody and whatever. So for part of my junior year, I moved into Donnie. Donnie's had a house, and then off of his house, he had a garage, and off the back of the garage, there was this apartment. There was like this 2-bedroom apartment, and it had its own bathroom and all of that. So I lived at Donnie's house. I was like roommates with Donnie for a chunk of my junior year. And so we're both going to different high schools, and then we'd come back and hang out. We worked at the same place. So we both worked at a golf course together. And so they're just like, from that point where I think emotionally it's such a supercharged time of life, to have him kind of be that stable force for me in a way has always made me fiercely loyal to him. And so the fact that he's gone on and done amazing, remarkable things, both athletically, and now he's an orthopedic surgeon. And so like he has no business still hanging out with me. And so the fact that he comes out is awesome for me. Like it's a really cool experience. And again, like I think Brandon mentioned it too. Like you don't have to say a lot with Donnie to still get this feeling of like everything's chill and cool and good with the world. So I don't know if that fully answers that.
No, it answers.
Yeah.
I mean, two of those points that I can attest to, like, I wouldn't have a problem with someone kind of beating you up in practice.
Yeah.
If someone would even touch Donnie's face in practice,
Yeah.
that man is beautiful again.
Yeah.
So I'd have an issue with that. But no, Donnie, I don't know him that well. I've played against him in sports growing up. He would play, and I would kind of be on the bench watching Donnie play.
Yeah.
But he just always comes off as just a genuine guy. So I can see that.
And he's so good at everything. And I think like there was a time even through high school where it was like, okay, there are things that I'm better than Donnie, and there's things that he's better than me at. And so it was always recognized that. And then when we're playing in games, like how can we capitalize on that? And after he goes off, and he obviously played at a much higher level than I did, he ended up going and playing in college and everything else. And so now like when he's just out of college, he was really, I mean, offensively, he went to a different level, which is, I mean, he's just basketball-wise, he's such a good player. And same thing, baseball. Baseball was one of his best sports. Donnie was an unbelievable baseball player growing up. And he was a pitcher, and he played a lot in the infield. And the coaches on all of his teams pitched him so much, and they had him throwing third and shortstop so much. His shoulder ended up kind of getting wearing out, and he ended up quitting around the same time I did. But if he wanted to play baseball, he could have played college baseball. If he wanted, he was an all-state football player, like as a wide receiver and a safety. He's just unreal athletically at anything he does. And yeah. So
it's easy for you to talk about Donnie. I think it's for you, the type of person you are, it's probably easy for you to talk about everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But walk us through kind of your career, because I'm guessing it's going to be harder for you. I mean, I know you didn't go play college basketball, but walk us through kind of your athletic career.
Starting from when?
Middle school, high school, wherever you want to.
When my dad is the coach, and this is, I think everybody listening will be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like when my dad is the coach, I'm very confident in what I'm able to do from an athletic standpoint, because I know that I have the freedom to be me, if that makes sense. Like once I got into high school and he's no longer my coach, to that point of like, I want to make sure I'm kind of a people pleaser. I want to make sure everybody's happy. I will not take shots, or I will not assert myself in a certain way, because I want everybody else on the team to feel like they're contributing and having a good time, and that we're all working together. When there are times where I think I would be better off and the team would be better off, if I'm like, I'm going to take this now, like I'm going to take over. And so when I got into high school, I didn't have that same killer mentality that I did when my dad was the coach, again, knowing that I had all the freedom. So high school was not in terms of like stats wise, like it's not like I put up crazy numbers in high school. Like one thing I am proud of. So going back to like my dad being in everything and my mom being very supportive, she recorded all of my games. So she delivered, like I got this massive bin of like small taped games.
I think we've all, anyone that's been associated with basketball at that time has received at least a clippet of themselves in seventh grade from those seventh or eighth or ninth grade from those videos that your mom recorded.
Yeah, that you're in them, like because we played. Well, like I didn't play against you specifically. I was like an assistant because my dad coached the middle school team that played against you. But yeah, so like John, like all of our friend group is in a bunch of those. But there was like hundreds of tapes, and she lost a lot of them. So she at one point had every game. And what would happen is that I would play my high school games all the way from ninth grade through varsity. She would record them, and then either that night or the next night, my dad and I would sit down and we'd break it down. And so he'd take, how many shots did you take? How many shots did you make? How many turnovers did you have? Assists, rebounds? Like he would break down my stats. And then he called it a chalk talk, and he would like, okay, here's where we need to improve. And unfortunately during high school, I never did anything about it. But so my high school career, one thing that I'm a shooter. And so my 3-point percentage for my junior and senior year combined was 69% from the 3-point line. And my free throw percentage was like 93. And my 2-point percentage was like 68.5. So from a shooting percentage, like I'm pretty proud of that. My problem was I was taking 7 shots a game. So I wasn't like, like scoring wise, I wasn't a big scorer. If you left me open, you would be in trouble, but I don't know. So high school wise, like basketball was always my main gig. So like I don't know if we want to like, I'm not comfortable doing this, but just to give people stuff. So I lettered for 3 years in basketball. I lettered for 3 years in tennis. I lettered in golf. And then football. So I have 4 sports in high school, I think is pretty cool, to the point of being able to play a lot of different sports. That's kind of my career. And then after high school, before I was going to leave on my mission, I had grown up going to a basketball camp with Johnny Judkins, who's the coach down at Dixie State, or what's now Utah Tech or whatever it is. So we were talking about would it make sense for me to come down? And then he's like, well, talk after the mission. So after the mission, I get back. My dad and I go on a little road trip down there, talk about it. And he's like, hey, let's have you, like he knows me, he knows my game and stuff. He's like, let's have you come over the summer and start working out with the team. And at that time I started dating Caitlin, and I don't know if I can really like describe how big of a crush I had on Caitlin. Like all through high school, like the first day I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, like she is gorgeous, and I need to get to know her. And so I spent 3 years just not talking to her and being super awkward. And so when she started actually like acknowledging my presence and then going on dates with me and things were progressing, so I called down to the Dixie coach and I was like, hey, I met a girl. Like I the passion just isn't there. My competitiveness isn't there in the same way. He's like, hey, if you ever change your mind, then let me know. So Caitlin and I ended up getting married. And then while I'm at BYU, I think I've told you this story, like I would go and I would play basketball. I was like, I'm still good at this. I wonder if I should pursue this. And so I call him up and I was like, hey, what would it look like? This is now the next year. And he's like, well, come down to this like tryout thing, this open gym that we have, and we'll see where you're at. So leading up to that, I played against the BYU volleyball team, men's volleyball team, almost daily as a way to kind of get into shape for that. And the BYU men's volleyball, you see it with Carson, but so many of the BYU men's volleyball team, they're all state, not just in volleyball, but basketball. Like they have unbelievable basketball players. They just happen to be so good at volleyball that they can play on a nationally ranked volleyball team. So I go down to Dixie now, I'm married, and I play, and all of these kids are just out of high school. I mean, they're just coming off of their senior year. They're now former All-State, whatever they are. They're in way better shape than me. So we go through, and it's not that I wasn't holding my own, but it's kind of what I was telling you about the Tuesday night stuff. Like in that environment, I'm not going to go in there and try to assert me being the alpha, which is not great. So I don't have a great performance. I come to the realization like this isn't my life anymore. Caitlin had saved up all of this money before we got married. And so I'm like, do I really want to pursue me going down to a college to play? She's going to have to work. She's going to have to waste away all of her savings. And that's just not what I wanted and foresaw. And then at the same time, the fact that I didn't have a good performance, so it was just like, yeah, like, this probably isn't for you. And that's kind of how it all fizzled out. So yeah, I think there's a chance I could have played somewhere initially had I not gotten married and
Done a mission.
gone on a mission, all that stuff.
I think there's no doubt with everyone that's played against you, with you, or anything like that, when you are comfortable, that there's no doubt you're just as good as anyone that we've played with. When you see like Justin or any of these guys, Kyle, who played college basketball, I mean, you're Donnie, you're on their level.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not in that same shape that they were when they played, but
yeah,
you were there.
Yeah. It's nice when other people say it, because there's so many guys who are like, oh, I could have played college if coach would have just let me in, right?
Yeah.
And so I never want to be that guy. The fact that Donnie has done it, and we have several friends who have done it, and to do it is so much different than us saying we could have done it. And just the grind, right, of just the practices and the pushing and the shoving and the injuries that we talked about, like the tennis stuff. But so for those who have done it, I can't compare myself to them. But if you put me in a gym in a men's league game with crappy refs, like, yeah, I can put up the same numbers they can. Like it's just different.
Yeah. You do this in every podcast. As the creator of Man Games, obviously this isn't your only thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO of Man Games, you did give Caitlin CEO of Girl Games. I was a little upset about that.
You wanted to be CEO
I was
of Girl
gonna
Games?
apply. I feel like today's world, that's okay.
Yeah.
But what do you do professionally? You've talked briefly about it on other podcasts, but
Yeah.
it's usually kind of in context of what someone else does.
So I'm in marketing. So there are two kind of main businesses. One is called Senior Benefits Insurance Services, and the other one is called 90 Days from Retirement. We help people with Medicare. So seniors who need health insurance after they no longer have coverage through an employer or through the marketplace because they qualify for Medicare. So it's a crazy complex world. So Senior Benefits Insurance Services is mainly Utah. So we lock down Utah and help large employer groups, employee benefit brokers deal with that transition of those employees into Medicare. Because there's a lot of risk and liability for those brokers and the companies if they're not doing it right with a lot of things that are going on there. 90 Days from Retirement is more of the national arm, so that's how we're able to get our name out nationally and help people all across the country. So a lot of my day is managing websites, making YouTube content, videos, making marketing materials that will help people with Medicare. And it's called the Medicare maze. It's called all of this stuff where it's just a headache for people that are, your dad's at that age. I don't know if he's on Medicare yet, or I know he's eligible for it, but I don't know if he's taking it.
Is this like a, do you want me to refer him?
Yeah, if you would send him. No, but if you ask people about it, and brilliant people, we help doctors, we help attorneys, we help scientists and physicists, like all these people that are just brilliant people. And then I tried to learn everything I could to know what to do with Medicare, and I am lost. Like I have no idea what's going on. So it's like this super complex system that we help make it easy for people.
Why is it so complex?
Well, this is going to be like our political differences coming out if if you really want to get into that. I think trying to make it as non-political as I can, it's a massive government system that is not bringing in enough money as what goes out. And so it makes it very hard. And so every year they're trying to mitigate the problems that come with it. And with that there are all these, you take like an HSA, which has become really popular now. So people who have an HSA, it does not play well with Medicare. And the way that was all structured, for whatever reason, they just don't go nice to each other. So if you're taking Part A only as Medicare, this is stupid that nobody's going to want to hear this, but if you're taking a certain part of Medicare and you have an HSA, you're going to get penalized. And people don't know this. And a lot of employer groups don't know this, and employee benefit brokers don't know this. So they're like, yeah, let's keep contributing to your HSA. And then it turns out you've got this big penalty because you've been contributing when you shouldn't. So that's one aspect of a ton of it. And there's just so many different. Health insurance in general sucks in terms of the complexity and knowing what to do, and networks and doctors and payments and coverage and exclusions and all of this stuff. And so it just gets to be a bit of a mess because it doesn't work the same way as like an employer group plan does. And so it's just different than what people have been used to their whole lives.
And have you always been in that sphere, or is this more of a recent thing?
So I went to college to become a doctor. So I was going pre-med and I needed to take the MCAT. And this is starting to become a pattern of my life. It was like I'm on the road to doing good things, then I don't. So I needed to take the MCAT, and that was it. At the time, we had one baby, we had one kid, and Caitlin had just gotten pregnant with the second. And Caitlin's uncle is a well-known cardiologist here locally. And so him and his wife, we sat down one night over a dinner, and I was asking him, I was like, here's what I'm thinking. I'm not feeling good about this decision. And in college, I had gotten involved in a startup under sales and marketing, and I was loving it. I was loving the startup stuff. And so they sat down, and specifically the wife said, I was a single mom for 10 years. And so my normal is that my dad was around. And so I didn't want to be the dad that wasn't there for the first 10 years of my kids growing up. And now that Caitlin has a second child, she's like, I don't want to be a single mom with 2 kids now. Plus the mountain of debt. I've always been very nervous about debt. And so Donnie has gone this route. And another good friend of ours, Kyle, has gone this route. And I look at them now and I was like, man, I don't think I could have done that. And so after that, startup happens. That startup we sell. I get involved in another startup where we're making the whiteboard animation videos back before that was like an actual thing. Like we were very, very early in that, me and a buddy of mine. And so our biggest client for those whiteboard videos, we were having trouble meeting the deadlines because they didn't have a marketing person. So we would submit things, but the person in charge of it was handling, and Joyce is amazing. Like I still love her to this day. She was just handling so many different operational things of the company that this was just kind of not top of mind. And so I knew the president of the company. I was like, look, like if I can continue doing this side business, I'll come in and I will do your marketing for you. And then you'll have that person. And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. And so I ended up working, it's a PBM, pharmacy benefits, drug insurance, basically. They get acquired by another company. And then that company did business with EMI Health, which is an insurance carrier here in Utah. So I went golfing with their CFO and COO once. They knew that I was looking. And so I went over there. That's where I met Brandon. And then EMI Health did business with the company that I'm with now. President of this company was just amazing. Like I'd gone to lunches with him and just the way he thinks and the way his mind works. And I just went to lunch with him one day and I was like, will you be my mentor? Like it wasn't looking for a job or anything. It was just like, will you be my mentor? Can I learn from you about how to build businesses and how to make these relationships? And then it slowly progressed to where it was like, I think we could help each other. And so then I came on to there. So now I've been in the health insurance or healthcare in some form or another for as long as I was out of high school. Does that make sense?
So it seems like there's a pattern of just kind of a relationship you had,
mm-hmm.
and that person being either impressed or liked or whatever the case be of you resulted in another position.
Yeah, another opportunity that was a stepping stone, right? And it's like EMI Health, the boss there, like when I told her that I was leaving, it was just such a great opportunity. And she was like, if you were my son, I'd tell you to do it. Like I'd tell you to take it. Like I don't want you to go, but that's great. And Trenton is great. And she knows him. And so just like those relationships, and I still have great relationships with my former employer. Like I think relationships are so important that, yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
So you keep kind of coming back to this relationships point of, I think it was one of the foundation pieces of Man Games. You bring it up right at the beginning of Man Games every single time, that it's not ever, you haven't called out Man Games as like kind of a networking thing, but it obviously, the relationships that you build there, they last longer than just that game.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I were friends before it. We've probably become closer since it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a ton of different people that either you or I have come closer to because of it.
Yeah.
Why do you think in a sports atmosphere those relationships are kind of, for me, it's been easier to build than
Yeah.
it is kind of, hey, let's go to lunch and talk, or let's go here, or just meeting people at random. Why do you think sports specifically makes it easier to build that relationship?
I think it's a competitive environment where, like, if you and I go to a lunch, specifically from like a business networking standpoint, and this is why networking events are so hard. Again, Man Games is not a networking event; it just turns into it because of the way that it happens. But like, if you and I go to lunch, in my mind, and whether it's right or not, I'm thinking like, what does JD want out of this, and what do I want out of this, and am I going to get what I want, and is he going to get what he wants? Is he trying to sell me something? Like, what if I'm not even remotely interested in what he does? What if he's not even remotely interested in what I do? And now we're going to spend this hour kind of like, I don't know, like shooting the shit about who knows what, right? And I think with the Man Games, because it's not intended to be a networking event, outside of the fact that we do have sponsors who want to shout out what they do, and so they contribute to have that opportunity. But going into the event, like, you're like, hey, I'm going to compete against you. That's what I want out of this, is I want to beat you. And then I've said it on multiple ones. I think that sports are such a shortcut to figure out what a person's really like, in terms of if things are not going right, how do they react? Do they lose their cool and they just lose their temper and go crazy? And you can immediately say, like, I don't really want to know that person anymore. Or are they super nice? And if they beat you, are they good about it? If you beat them, are they cool about it? If they're losing, are they going to try and figure things out and keep trying hard? Or are they just going to give up and say, like, this is dumb, I don't want to be here? And so I think you can really get to the character of people really quickly in a sporting environment. And then because there are so many different people at Man Games and different types of people, everybody kind of finds somebody that they jive pretty well with. And some people, like Kyle, he can jive well with almost anybody except for extreme introverts. But I think that that's why it's nice, is because nobody really wants anything out of it, but you naturally start to, after you play sports, hey, where did you play? Like, where did you go to high school? Oh, cool. What are you doing now? What does your family look like? But it's not like this sit down formal at lunch, okay, tell me what you do type of a thing. I don't know. I think that's probably why it's easier.
And do you think with sports, so you talk about kind of getting to the character of someone, how they respond to something, and then obviously that would relate to how business-wise, how you feel, how they would respond to something in another world.
Yeah.
But have you always felt that that has been the case, or do you think people develop a different response over time?
I think we change for sure, but I look at like you, right? Like when we play Man Games, you're an attorney professionally. And so in Man Games, whether you're up or down, like, you're going to try and figure out a way to win. And you're not dirty or cheating, or you're not like, but you'll also be physical. You'll take a charge in basketball. Like, you'll do what it takes to win in a fair way. And as an attorney, that's what I would want, right? Like, I look at, like, if there's somebody that's representing me and it's a high stress environment situation where, like, whether I'm going to be going to jail or a lot of money is on the line or family relationships are on the line, like, I would want my attorney to do everything that he could up to the line and not cross the line to help us win. And so, like, I can really quickly see that in the character of different people of what I want. And like, for me, going to Man Games, like, Medicare wise, like, I have nothing that I can really present to people at Man Games of like,
Hopefully.
hey, do you want to talk about Medicare? Because we're all 30 years away from it. But I want to give them the opportunity to see, I don't know, like, again, I want to see what you're like in sports. And then if you're a cool person, like, let's figure out how I can help you. That's the whole point of it too, is like, I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can if I know what it is that you need.
What do you see the future of Man Games?
I don't know. I think it's really hard to scale. I think it's possible. I imagine that what we would probably have to do is just have events in states. So Nathan Snar was at this last one. He lives in Cleveland. And so I think he's talked about wanting to be an ambassador and all this stuff. So I think that if I let him run a Man Games event in Cleveland, that would be something that would be interesting. And so if we could have regional events to where they're experiencing this whole event, and then they can kind of qualify to get to bigger events. We talked about kind of the smaller qualifying things, but for those who have been to Man Games, qualifiers were not a big draw, because it's like, I want the experience of Man Games rather than going and playing with people on weekends and broken up over time. So I think we got to figure out a way to not franchise it, but in a way franchise it to where it's in different areas. And then the event is still happening. You're still getting all of the positive things that come from the event itself. And then those who separate themselves athletically in those events can go and play in an upper echelon there as well. And then ideally we have Steph Curry, Tony Finau, Bryce Harper, all these people that are coming and playing and doing stuff like that.
Steph might get me in basketball, but I'm going to get him in pickleball.
Yeah. He's a really good golfer too.
Yeah, I'm not going to get him in that. Pretty terrible at
Yeah.
that. What other topics do you want to talk about? There's 3 questions I know that we're going to finish on. But
are there any others that were from Instagram that we need to worry about?
There are a few other smaller ones. Like, do you have a bucket list? What are a few things on it?
Bucket list. I would like to, at some point, have stuff at my house that are things that are fun. So like a pickleball court. I want to have a putting green of some sort and a basketball court of some sort. So, yeah. Traveling would be fun.
Not a big traveler.
There are places I want to see. So, like, there's the Baltic cruise that's up kind of like Norway, Sweden. I think it hits Denmark, St. Petersburg, Russia. That would be fun. I don't know.
Best athlete you personally know?
Okay, so we have to define an athlete at this point then, because big, fast, and strong could define an athlete. But to the point of what all of Man Games is and how I kind of envisioned it is, can somebody do a lot of different things really well? So I kind of have to answer this in 2 ways. So the best athlete that I personally know, and I don't know if he remembers me at all, is probably Zane Beatles. Do you know that name?
Yes.
So he and I went to middle school together. He went to Hillcrest. So I was supposed to go to Hillcrest, and then I went to Jordan. So he went to Hillcrest, and he was 2 years older than me. And so coming up in that system, there were times where we played against each other. And then again, like he wouldn't have, because I was younger, I don't know that he would know who I am now, but at the time we knew who the other person was. So he went on to play in the NFL for 9 years. He played for several teams, but he was an offensive lineman. He was like 6'4" and 305 pounds or whatever he was. What I don't think a lot of people know is that he was an unbelievable basketball player. So he, I think as a freshman, he was getting varsity time because he was so big, and he's a really good basketball player. And then he was also a very good baseball player. So Zane could play all of these different sports. He was huge, strong, fast. Like that's the thing. Like people who haven't been to an NFL game, like you watch it on TV, but in person is just so different. They're like, these are like rhinoceros-sized human beings that are so fast, and their feet are just so quick, and they're doing amazing things. So Zane, again, at that level is something that I just can't comprehend. And just the amount, the athletes that he's pushing and shoving and doing. He made the Pro Bowl. Like it's not just a guy who made the NFL and got cut. He played consistently and a Pro Bowl level athlete, and he could play. Plus, like the Wonderlic test, I think he got like a 36. And so context wise, Aaron Rodgers got like a 35. Tom Brady got like a 33. Peyton Manning got a 28. So he's really bright too. Like he's a smart dude, really athletic human being, huge, awesome. So that's probably where I would go. Like I know him, but I'm not close with him. On the other side of that, I think I would probably have to name the teammates that I've had at Man Games, just because they're all so good and I know them very well. I mean, like Donnie, we've talked about. I haven't found something that he's not good at. And if he's not good at it, you give him a day and he'll be great at it. And then Brandon, even though he's super old, does really good at everything that he tries. And then John, like I can't find a weakness with John. Like he is so good at everything. I mean, whether it's poker, Halo, basketball, I mean, even like tennis, he can pick up a tennis racket and he'll figure it out. He's unbelievable at pickleball, like ping pong. Like there's just not a sport that I found that John's not good at.
FIFA,
he's
randomly,
great.
I found out that he was good at Jeopardy when we were just sitting around during a Man Games waiting for something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's annoying.
John's really good. Yeah, John's great.
If you could live a professional athlete's greatest moment, who and what would it be?
Roger Federer has to come up for me again. Like, I'm obsessed with the dude. Like, it's probably an unhealthy. Like, when he retired, that was a devastating moment for me. And when he lost Wimbledon, like, this is probably more than people care. But when he lost to Djokovic the last time they played, like, that hurt. But his Australian Open, I think it was 2017 against Rafa Nadal, would be a really cool moment to live. And for those who are not tennis players, you can zone out. But for those who are, like, you'll know what was going on. And he was coming back off of an injury, and it was this 5-set grueling match. And it was awesome. It was so cool. And I remember where I was, like, because it was in Australia. So it was like from 3 o'clock in the morning to like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was that I was staying up with some family, and we were watching it. And that's probably the moment that I would want to live.
Not a tennis guy, but now I want to live that moment.
It was really cool.
What is one thing you couldn't go a day without? It's a thing, not a person. So we've already talked about Caitlin. Yeah, she's great. I've hung out with her.
Yeah. A thing that I couldn't go a day without. Like, I don't know that there's anything that I couldn't go a day without. There's things that I don't want to go a day without, but like air. I mean, I don't know.
This is like a sponsorship moment. You could hold up
my Owala bottle is a thing that I can't live without. I think like the easy answer is the phone, right? Like I can, like if we go camping or whatever, I can just not deal with the phone and be fine. I wouldn't say fine, like I wouldn't enjoy it. I'd want it, but I don't know that there's anything that I could live without. And food wise, like I think we've all fasted at some point in our lives, or we just haven't eaten for a day. But I would probably say the phone. It just kind of connects me to our relationships that we've talked about in the past.
It's a good one.
So I did cheat on one of these questions that I did see.
Okay.
Because I gave you the Instagram account,
mm-hmm.
and you already asked the second part of it. You didn't ask the first part of it, because it was the very first question that came through from a mutual friend of ours right when I had turned over the account and we'd posted that. Do you know which one it is?
Is it the Taylor Dance one?
No. It was Ty.
Oh, okay.
Cahoon.
Yeah.
So the first part of his question, and this is a really cool moment. So I do kind of want to share this one, because his question is, why did you go to Jordan instead of Hillcrest?
Okay.
Unless you don't want to talk about this.
No, I was.
So we've kind of covered a lot of this, where growing up, I was supposed to go to Hillcrest. That's how I know Zane Beatles. And so my dad was the Union middle school basketball coach when I was in 8th grade, and he did it as well in 9th grade. So 8th grade tryouts come up, and I'm still going to like early morning things at Hillcrest because they opened it up to middle school kids to come do workouts and all that stuff. So I know who the coach is. All my friends are going to it, all this stuff. So he holds tryouts for the middle school team, and they line up somehow with the high school team tryouts. And what I mean by that is like the high school team's first cuts would happen like the day after the first day of tryouts for the middle school. So he had all of these 9th grade kids coming up and saying, like, I want to go try out for the high school, but if I get cut, I would also like to play on the middle school. I would like to try out at the middle school team. And so if I miss the first day of tryouts for the middle school team because I'm at the high school tryouts, does that mean that I won't be able to make the middle school team tryouts? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So he told all of them, he was like, if you go and try out at the high school, you have made it past the first day of middle school tryouts. You're good. Just come back to the second day and we'll figure things out. And so there were specific players that came up to him, and I won't get into names, but like some of them we knew very well, others we didn't. And so they came up like, what do you think I should do, to my dad as the coach? Mainly because they knew people who knew who he was. And I'm biased in this, but he is the best basketball coach that I have ever been around in terms of knowing how the fundamentals work, getting a team to play together. There are a lot of mutual friends that we have that have been there and have had him as a coach, and he's just a remarkable basketball coach. And so he would tell them, he was like, you would benefit from being with me for a year, but go to the high school, go try out, make the team great, right? And so somehow that got delivered to the high school coach at the time, Hillcrest high school coach, that my dad was telling people don't go try out for Hillcrest. Somehow that got translated in some weird way, right? And I know this because I'm his son, and like we're having conversations in the house of who, because I wanted to try out and then we wanted certain players on the team. And so he was like, oh yeah, this person will probably make the high school team. It would be great if he was down here with us for our team, but he'll probably make this team. And I told him to go try out. And so again, somehow it gets translated. So the high school coach calls my dad, and I was in the same room when this happened. And so I don't know what the coach said specifically, but I know how my dad reacts to things. And so my dad does not take well to being, and I wouldn't say threatened, but being like challenged in certain things. So somehow it was translated that, hey, I'm the high school coach, you're a middle school coach. What do you think you're doing telling kids not to come try out for the high school? You don't know what you're doing. That doesn't sit well with my dad. So it was like from that point forward, he was like, we're looking for another high school for you to go to for basketball. And so it came down to Olympus and Jordan. So in that year, my 8th grade year, Jordan took second in state. They lost to Danny Reeder and Alta. But Hal Hale was this like legendary coach. And so and it was close. Olympus had the twins and another Matt Schultz who I'd grown up playing with. And so it was like, that would be fun because the style and everything was great. But then Jordan was closer and I didn't really want to make that drive and I didn't know anybody other than those guys. And so I ended up going to Jordan for basketball, and then Hal Hale retires like after that year. And so there's a new coach from my 9th grade on all the way through. So that's why I go to Jordan. And what's really interesting is this was about a month ago. That coach at Hillcrest ended up going, and he was the first coach at Harriman when Harriman opened up. And so they had this like, it was the last time that Hillcrest and Harriman were going to play. A buddy of mine is an assistant coach at Harriman. And he told me, hey, they're going to do this like memorial of some sort for him. So will you send this out to your Hillcrest friends? Because I don't know them and a lot of people don't know this is happening. So I send it out. And so I end up going to that. And so I run into him in the hall with my kids. I'm walking into the game and he's in the hall there. And I was like, hey, like you won't remember me, and I didn't play for you, but like you had a great career. Like congratulations. This is a really cool thing. Happy to be here. I hope you have a really good night. And he's like, thank you so much for being here. He's like, I know who you are. And I was like, great. Like, this is your night. I'll just be here. And so at halftime, they like anybody who you played for him or faculty or whatever come out. And so they all take a picture. And so I don't go to that, but I see a lot of my friends that played on the same team. And so again, I'm going in the hallway to switch over to a different side because we're kind of in a rowdier section of kids. And so I want to go to the other side where it's empty, run into him in the hall again. And so we just had this like probably 5-minute conversation, and he was just like, I really wish I could have coached you. And I didn't think that he knew who I was. And he's like, I remember seeing you at all of our stuff, like the football games, because I was close with Donnie. He's like, you were always hanging out with Donnie. And we were always talking about you. And there was between my junior and senior year, I was thinking of transferring. I needed my coach to sign off, otherwise I would lose a year of eligibility. But I was trying to come back to Hillcrest. But as the coach, he couldn't recruit me. So I never knew if I would even get to play if I made this switch. And so it kind of like closed this loop of semi-regret. Like I don't regret it, but there was this sort of like, oh, what would have happened? Of like, he knew who I was, and he knew like, he thought that I would be an asset to the team, which was kind of like satisfying. So it was kind of weird how and I was like, did you ever hear the story of why I didn't? He's like, no, I have no idea why you didn't. And I was like, my dad was the middle school coach at Union, and this is what happened. He's like, oh my gosh, like I wish I would have known it was something so silly. He was like, it shouldn't have happened. So that's the story of why I went to.
Man, I've heard parts of that story, but I have not heard. I haven't heard the full circle that just came.
Yeah, it was like really cool. Yeah, it was probably about a month ago.
But I hadn't heard the entirety of it. That I didn't know you were thinking of going back. I didn't know those parts of it.
Yeah, I asked, like, my dad and I go into the Jordan coach, and I have like this great guy. I think he genuinely cared for the kids that he coached and everything. But I go in there and we were like, hey, I am thinking of switching to Hillcrest. Would you sign the release? And he said, hell no. And so there was a way that we could have still done it because Hillcrest had this IB program, which was like an academic program, and my grades were really, really good. And so I would have been able to get into that and make it work. but I didn't know if the Hillcrest coach wanted me there or if I would play as a senior coming in and disrupting their team chemistry or whatever. So we just didn't end up making the decision.
And did South Summit pop up on your list of possible transfer schools?
I wish, like we've talked about this, like looking back, to go to a smaller town school would have been so fun. And knowing, like, had I known now that I wasn't going to go play college and I wasn't going to pursue that, to just like go to a small school and live in that environment where it's just standing room only at every game and everyone in the town knows who you are. And whether you're good or not, like it's just everybody rallies around you. And like at Jordan, we had a decent student body section that would come, but really we never had like sold out games where everything was packed. Like that never happened.
We could have had you.
I wish I would have known.
Yeah.
I'd live up in Oakley.
It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the only question I saw. So
okay. Well, the rest of them, we've gone through all of them. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't ask that second part.
I get a lot of friends from Hillcrest and Jordan that ask that probably don't know that full story, but that's the full story.
They're going to highest viewership just for that.
Just for that. Yeah. How did some average high school kid not play at Hillcrest and went to another average high school? Yeah. Everyone's worried.
That's what the people have been talking about
for years. But I got called traitor a lot. And it's just high school kids. Like it wasn't anything, but those games were special. And I had 2 of my worst games and 2 of my best games against Hillcrest. So there was a lot of pressure on those. Like most of the girls I dated in high school were at Hillcrest, like, and all that. So there's a lot of pressure in those games.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. What else have you got?
Well,
What else do you want to know? This is your chance to grill me on anything that you've ever wanted to know. Because I'm usually pretty reserved, but for whatever reason, I'm like, I'll share anything.
So you and I have had more personal conversations and different things like that, and I don't know you have a way of when you're interacting with people that you make them, I think they think that they're, one of your best friends.
Okay.
And so with that,
who is my best friend?
give me your top 3.
Yeah.
No, I guess the question is, so I know you read a lot of like self-help books and different things like that, and like YouTube.
I used to. Less on self-help now, but I used to.
Is that a characteristic that you've learned, or just generally, is that just who you are that people think?
And I could be completely wrong on this, but I get like a first impression about people, and then I figure out like how Brandon and I kind of use the word vibrational energy or whatever you want to call it. Like, are we on the same wavelength with this person? And so I'm able to pick up on that pretty quick. And then I'm like, I want to pursue that. And then I've made the mistakes on the other end of being a real jerk and not being nice to people and seeing the consequences of that and burning bridges. And so it's like, I don't ever want that in life, just through experiences of life of just seeing things change really quickly to where somebody's not around anymore. And it's like, man, I really wish that relationship wouldn't have ended that way. And I don't want to have that regret. And so it's like when I interact with people, I genuinely assume the best of pretty much everyone, unless I get a weird vibe of that they're scary or they're dangerous in some way to me. And so like best friends, I was all hung up on best friends growing up of like, Donnie is my best friend or whatever.
Not making my top 10 on MySpace.
Top 8.
Is it 8? I
yeah.
can't remember. Tom was always my number 1.
Tom. But I like, at my funeral, I would love it if I had 50 people come up and say like, I thought that he was my best friend. And I know that like in your case, like, yeah, I know that he was really close with Brandon and with Donnie and with whoever else. But I felt that like what you're saying is like, great. Like that's kind of like feels nice to hear it because I genuinely want to have a lot of friends. And I don't think that as we get older, I think there was something where you can only maintain a certain number of relationships, close relationships. So there are people in my life that I don't talk to as much as I would like to, and that were at one point as close to me as anybody. And I don't know. I think that those are special because like in that moment of time, we were able to have a relationship that helped each other in a really, really strong way, right? Like in 5-10 years, who knows where we will be? Like, because if we move, you just lose it, right? But right now we're really close, and I am happy about that. Like that makes me very happy. And even though it's like you only want to play pickleball, which is the sport that people who can't play tennis play, like it's okay. But like this relationship is very valuable to me, and that relationship with Brandon and Donnie, now he lives so far away. Like he and I aren't as close as you and I are in terms of like, I don't know his struggles. I don't know his worries. I don't know what keeps him up at night other than he's got a kid. So that probably keeps like a new kid. Mm-hmm. And same thing for me. Like, I don't think I'm the same person that he may remember me as when we were closer. But like if he called and said, hey, I've got a problem, can you fly out to Minnesota? Yeah, like, of course. And there are a lot of people that I feel that way about. So I think I genuinely just care for people that I like. I don't know. Does that answer it or not?
It answers it.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. You're a good person.
No.
Don't know how to respond to it.
No, I judge people quickly, and that's the point. Like Weston, right? Like I just think Weston's a cool dude. And so he and I aren't particularly close, other than we've done this podcast. We play basketball against each other. But I think he's a good dude. And so same thing if he needed help. Or Maddie from Primo, like he's been super nice to bring stuff to Man Games. And I don't even like expect him, like even if he doesn't do that, I think he's great. And I would love to support Primo any way I can. And just, there are people like that all over that are just good guys. It only helps us. Like if you and I are working towards the same, like helping each other, we're so much better off in the world than if it's like, I'm going to do this lone wolf style, I think. But I could be wrong. I don't want to get into like Andrew Tate, but that's his concept of him and his brother or cousins or whatever, like living together so they could live a lifestyle that they couldn't alone. I'm not saying like that specifically, but there are things in life where together we can do things better than we could alone.
I'm in it if you want to live together. Like we've talked about it
totally
previously.
Yeah. We don't use our basement, dude.
No.
We'll move down here. You guys take the top.
No, it's just all kind of mingle. Claire and Ella are roughly the
Can you
same
imagine
age.
the like gaming and video and movie setup that we could do in this room?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
No, this is my chance, but I
it's okay. There's a lot of pressure in that seat.
It is.
Yeah.
It's too much. You've had hundreds of hours of sitting in the seat.
I don't know about hundreds, but I've had
between your Medicare
couple.
and other podcasts.
This isn't even the longest podcast. Like we still have to go another probably like 25 minutes if we wanted to break the longest podcast.
Who was that?
Nate Snar.
Yeah, but that guy.
Brandon went over 2 hours. So I mean, if you're trying to compete with Brandon, you've got some work to do.
No, Nate Snar has. That guy was just personable. That guy.
Yeah.
That guy can talk in a good way. Kyle also.
Yeah. Kyle's was short. I think we kept his like an hour.
Yeah.
Nate Snar, actually, I think we talked about it, but we went to the same high school and he ended up leaving to go to Juan Diego, but we played on the same basketball team. So we're kind of like competing in that sense of trying to compete for time. But he's such a cool guy. Like in high school, I think we both mentioned like our walls were up because we were playing for the same spot. And so we didn't really like open up to each other. But now, like, great guy. He's going through a lot, like a tough time right now. So,
no. Brandon, I don't know how you could go that long with him. Mortal enemy.
Dude, you're getting really good at pickleball. Like,
thank you.
We could talk about that for a minute.
We could, but I don't want to jinx it because it is the only thing that brings me happiness at the moment. I mean, my kids, they're mediocre at best.
Yeah.
But pickleball, it's it.
Dude, we took down John and Colby, which is a big accomplishment for us.
I know. If they can get through the first hour and a half of this podcast, let's go into that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a goal to beat them because we've been really, really close a lot and like up like 9-4, and then they come back and beat us.
Always come back.
Yeah.
And like, had we ever beaten them in a game, but we just hadn't beat them in a series, correct?
We beat them for the first time in a game 2 times ago.
Uh-huh.
And then they beat us in the series. And then this was the first time we'd beaten them in a series. And 2 in a row. Like we usually play best of 3 for those who are watching. We beat them the first 2 games. Big comeback in the first game because we were down. and we pulled a switcheroo on him.
And John might bring up the fact that he hadn't played since last time we played together.
I hadn't either.
But you played those two other times with me.
Okay, true. 2 horrible times.
Yeah.
I did not play well.
But no, we beat them.
We did. We won't talk about the second series that we played with them because that was late. I mean, I was tired. Once I get past like 10:30 at night, I drop significantly.
So it's between early in the morning, Erik can't do it.
Yeah.
Late at night.
Exactly. No. From like 9 to 10, played really well.
Speaking of that, when can I get you to commit to a Wednesday morning?
I'm trying to slowly move my wake up schedule back, and I keep getting hit hard with like the holidays. So it's just like we'd have late nights, and so I'm moving it back now. So if I can get to the point where I can handle, what time do you get up? 5?
It starts at 5:30.
Oh, geez. So I have to get up. Here's another weird thing about me. Like, I can't just wake up and go somewhere. I have to shower. Like, showering wakes me up. Otherwise, I'm just dead. And so to make a 5:30, I got to get up at 4:45, shower, get ready, drive. Ugh. So I'm not to 4:45 yet.
Yeah, you'll get there. And it's a little closer to my house than your house.
Yours is all downhill. You could just like set yours in neutral and just coast.
The electric car,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Regenerative braking.
But that's the thing with pickleball is like I don't have a desire to get better at it. That's the sad part.
But why? I mean, I don't see anything else in your life where you don't try to get better at. Like everything else, your job, man games. It's not just like hey, this is a hobby. It's always like you have to be great at it. Like after the first man games, we had a blast. Everyone was like, hey, let's do this again. And none of us saw that like this was going to be a full event.
Yeah.
It always seemed like, hey, this is going to be a thing where some dudes get together and have a good time on the weekend and then go back to their life.
So you mad? Are you like,
no,
we would rather have it be smaller?
No, there were perks of the smaller one, but
yeah,
I think that the way it's currently run is unbelievably fun. Like we all feel left out if we aren't able to attend. And when I had my kid, like I felt like I was missing something.
I didn't think you were committed to our relationship, so I took it personally.
Yeah, Ella got in the way, you know?
Ella? I'm sorry. She is the Claire in your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, pickleball. So this is going to come off as super arrogant. So I hope everybody holds on to this and uses it against me, I guess, for the rest of my life. Pickleball is a sport where I have no desire to put in the time to get better. I feel like I am at a level right now where there isn't like a shot where I'm like, oh, how do I hit that? I don't know how to hit that shot. Like for the most part, when we play, it's me just making dumb mistakes. It's all just like, do I have the patience? Do I have the ability to put it where I need to put it and then take advantage of stuff? And so I'm a good enough pickleball player right now that I can walk into most pickleball situations and feel confident that I'll do fine. There are players that are better than me, for sure. John's better than me. But it's not like it's one of those things where it's like I don't feel comfortable ever going at John. If we're trying to win a game, I'll go away from him, but I don't have any problems going at him, and he has no problems going at me, obviously. But for me to put in the time to get better at pickleball, I would rather allocate that time to a sport that I don't feel that I have mastered yet, like golf. Like golf, I don't feel like I am in control like I do with pickleball. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, how many times have we gone to just shoot playing basketball?
Yeah.
Not saying you've mastered, like no one's mastered basketball or anything like that, but like you went and you just shoot to get better at basketball.
It's usually in preparation for something that I want to win. Like we have that annual game that I've tried to get you to come play at, but they won't let you, which we lost this year, by the way. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy, I think. But
the people are talking.
It's all over Twitter right now. But like for that game, I have to perform well for us to stay close. And so if I haven't played basketball, because I don't play basketball a lot anymore. So if I haven't played basketball and I just go in cold, like I'm not going to shoot well, and I'm a shooter. So So I have something that I'm trying to get ready for. If there's like a tournament that I care about from a pickleball standpoint,
Not the pickler opening
no.
ceremony.
Like that was fun. And I'm sad that we didn't do as well as we hoped we had. But at the end of that, I'm not like, oh man, I really don't ever want to feel that again. Like I need to get better at pickleball so I can come avenge these losses. Like I just don't feel that way. Doesn't mean I don't still care about you.
Is it just the name? You feel ridiculous getting amped up for
pickleball.
Or as Ella call it, pickles balls.
Caitlin's family has a problem of pluralizing a lot of stuff. So Cherry Hill, you call Cherry Hills.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, it's a singular hill. There's one hill that Cherry Hill is on. So I start to pluralize every Cherry's Hills. So we have to, Brandon called Ross's.
Pickles balls.
So how do you have like...
You can give them that one.
Yeah, pickles balls. I don't know. I think like, again, just my experience, I'm decent at ping pong. I'm decent at tennis. And so to bring in pickleball, it's like, yeah, I get it. I get this sport. I don't fully get golf, right? Like there are shots that I have no idea how, I haven't figured out how to hit on golf, but it's like, okay, I could figure out how to do a flip serve, even though it's going to be illegal next year. This year, we're already in this year. Yeah, it's done. You can't do that anymore. But there aren't like shots where I'm like, oh, how physics-wise does he pull that off? Like I don't have that. So it doesn't like challenge me in that way.
All right, we'll get there.
Sorry to all the pickleball players. We have it every year as Man Games, though. Every year there's a pickleball event.
I know.
So it's a great leveling event for people who, because that learning curve for pickleball is much different than the learning curve for tennis.
Yeah.
So to have a tennis event like we had, you had two teams that really played tennis, and then everybody else, there's like a middle group, and then there was some who had never played tennis. And so like for them, it's just not fun because like just figuring that out is not something that you can do. But pickleball, most people have played ping pong, and it's got aspects of that in it. So
I feel like you're belittling me right now, but
no, I'm not. I'm not. You will have, and this is why pickleball is so popular, is you have so much fun with pickleball, and you would hate tennis. Like if you were to go play tennis with me right now, you wouldn't have fun.
I'm pretty good at tennis.
Then let's go play. Yeah. So pickleball makes it so that people who can't play tennis, because they haven't put in the time to get that learning curve, there's just a lot more moving parts. It's faster, it's heavier, it's a bigger court. And so it's just harder. But pickleball, it helps people get into an athletic event in an easier way. Like swimming. I want to get into swimming. It's not like a crazy event.
Is that why you are going to put swimming as an event in Man Games? Is just that you're hoping to get into it? You need the motivation.
Could be. I'm not playing in the spring event, but yeah, I want to know how to swim well. And not even fast. I just want to be able to swim for a long amount of time because I hate running and I'm not a big fan of cycling. But swimming seems like an exercise that would be good for my health and something that would be fun to just kind of figure out how to do. But right now, like the whole breathing aspect and then the flip turn, I really want to learn the flip turn. That's where I'm at for swimming.
I don't like swimming. I don't know how to swim. I never took swim lessons.
Yeah.
My dad, swimming and snowboarding.
Yeah.
Well, snowboarding I actually got good at, but swimming, my dad was just kind of like, people figure it out. Just kind of threw me in the water. Snowboarding, it was like, you'll figure it out. And he skied and just took me to the top, and it was just like, I'll meet you at the bottom. He got like halfway up. I mean, he got like halfway down, got bored how slow I was, and then he was just like, "Oh, just stay on this one. I'll come back for you." And that's how I learned to snowboard.
I've never been snowboarding or skiing.
Would you want to go? Or do you
no, I have zero desire. Like the president of my company is a big skier, snowboarder. So is the other partner, like huge into that. Caitlin's family skis. I have zero desire.
Is it just now that you're too old to try, or is it just like now
I think it's part of it's a fear of looking stupid. We've just talked about how like I'm relatively decent at a lot of different things. And so to go into something where I'd be absolutely abysmal would not be fun for me, especially if it's around people that I like want to impress. And then I just look like a doofus and I'm like rolling down the mountain. Like that wouldn't be fun. It has every aspect of the world that I hate. So cold, snow, hate it. sun glare into my eyes. And I know you can wear goggles and stuff, but temperature regulation, from what I understand in skiing and snowboarding, is miserable. And Caitlin's family, and I've told this story before, but Caitlin's family, when we first started, like when we were first married and they were trying to convince me to go up there, we're at this family gathering and they're like, you got to come skiing. Here's the best part about skiing. The best part about skiing is when you're in the lodge, you've got this hot chocolate, and it's just and they're like, no. And they interrupt. That's not the best part about skiing. The best part about skiing, Erik, the best part about skiing is when you get in the car and you shed all of your layers, and it's just like you're just sweaty and you're just like shedding all these clothes on it. So hold on. The best part about skiing is not skiing. I can go sit in a sauna in a bunch of clothes and take them off in a car, or I can go have hot chocolate in the lodge without skiing. So if that's the best part about skiing, then I'm good. Like, you go ski and I'll do those things.
It would give you an opportunity in another atmosphere to wear your polar bear pants, though.
That's true. And my big hat.
You can wear them underneath.
Yeah. You've seen my big hat,
yeah.
right? Yeah. My big fuzzy hat. That'd be a hit.
All right. Who?
Last three?
Let's
do
the last three.
Okay. You got to get home. It's late.
Who? I don't remember the order you go in.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Who was not at Man Games most recently that you want to see at Man Games?
Okay, so who do I want to be at Man Games that has not been to Man Games?
Yeah.
Is that the question that you're asking?
That's
just want to clarify. I would love to get Danny Reeder to go to Man Games.
My idol, Danny Reeder.
I think Danny is an unbelievable person. I think we've both idolized him in a way growing up because Danny is so good at basketball and everything he tries. But Danny, I've had a couple of chances just kind of chat with him, whether it's before basketball or whatever. We did a golf tournament, company golf tournament once. He's just a really cool dude and just seems like a super down-to-earth, direct, like will tell you what he's thinking. He's not going to like sugarcoat things. And I appreciate that. So, and Danny would do great at this. And I think he'd have a great time. So Danny is the person that I would want to get to Man Games.
I would love Danny to be at Man Games too.
Danny, please, if you've made it 2 hours and 4 minutes into this podcast, please come to Man Games.
Yep, on my team.
On JD's team.
I'll kick up any one of the three, even Carson, who won us an event.
Yeah, your loyalty is to Danny.
Yep. He doesn't know who I am, but yes.
He knows who you are.
Now he does.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Who was at the last Man Games that was not on your team or has not been on your team in the past that you would
I would want on this podcast?
That you would want on this podcast. That you would like on your next Man Games team?
I don't know that I want a different team than the one I have. I think that John wants to split off, which makes sense. Like, John would like to beat our team and make it a little bit more level all the way around, which is great. And we did that once. And we beat you guys. But
we got close.
Bowling, man. Bowling hurt you guys. I didn't know that Donnie was a really good bowler. So
you did.
I didn't. I genuinely
no,
didn't.
I mean, like, you did because
I knew he'd be fine, but I didn't realize he was going to be bowling like 200s.
Yeah, you did just because it was like, hey, Donnie, are you going to show up? And he's like, yeah, I'll be there. It's good. If you need surgery or something, I'll be there. But yeah, I bowl around to 200.
On my team, I mean, like, Danny would be great to have on our team. But
that was at the last Man Games.
Oh, that was at the last Man Games. Who do I want from the last Man Games to be on my team now?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I know I'm supposed to say you.
I don't want to be on your team.
Yeah, I'd rather beat you anyway. Except for pickleball. Like, I really enjoy playing pickleball with you.
Ditto.
Yeah. And however, Brandon and I are undefeated at Man Games in pickleball.
For now.
Just
But you
saying.
didn't play together last Man Games.
It's true. That's a good question. Weston asked me this, and it was really hard for me to answer because there's just a lot of different things that happen there. So they were at this last Man Games and to be on my team. I think that having Ted would be fun. Or Ryan. Well, I'll go with Ted on this one. Ted, but at the same time, like, I'd rather beat Ted. Like, I'd rather play against. There are people in my life that I'd rather play against than with. We've had this conversation, And Ted's one of those, not because I don't like him or I wouldn't want to be on his team. There's just this fun like banter back and forth that comes when you're playing against him. Maybe he still does it when he's with you, but I'll just go with Ted. We'll go with Ted.
Ted.
He's also the person that I would like to get on this podcast that we're talking
That was the
about.
next question.
Yeah, we're trying to get him on here. So
Has he responded?
yeah. He's a busy dude. So he's the CEO of a Rivet, which is a company. So he's got a lot of things on his plate. He's a big shot.
Bigger podcasts.
He's got bigger podcasts that are probably like in the healthcare space that makes sense for him, and we're not.
Yeah. But does he have a podcasting van business?
Ooh.
No,
I do want to get into that, though. I do want a podcast van. Just take all of this and throw it in the van.
Yep.
Yeah. Bookshelf, everything.
Yeah, it's got plugs.
Yeah.
And a fridge.
Yeah. I got little secure straps that we could like so it doesn't fall over in the van.
I'm there.
Yeah. Books would be kind of hard to secure, but yeah.
All right. Last serious question.
It's the big one.
What does it mean to be a man?
See, it's a lot easier to ask that question than answer that question. And I didn't even like think of my answer so far, which is probably a bad thing. I was worried about all the questions that I didn't know that were coming, like how I would answer those. I think like from my perspective, it's just been this vein that we've been talking about a lot of my mindset around Caitlin and dating Caitlin and the choices I've made along the way is I think that a man is there to protect the people that he cares about. And the way that I am able to do that is financially through work. I think physically to a sense, like I'm not fighting people. We haven't had that, but in a way to try and protect my family physically from the elements or doing harder tasks around the house, whatever that may be. And trying to protect them from the world in that my kids, like I don't want them to be sheltered. I want to expose them enough, but not enough to where they are hurt severely, like beyond all repair. And so I think protection in a way, and emotionally as well, like I think as men, personally, like just me speaking here, there's a lot of crap that goes on in my mind in terms of whether that's the insecurities that we've talked about, or am I enough, or am I attractive enough? I'm probably in the worst shape of my life right now. And so to open up and to spill my emotions to my family, I don't think will help them. And so I think personally, I keep a lot of that in. And my justification for that is to protect them because they're going through a lot, right? Like Caitlin she's a mom, a great mom. She does fitness stuff. She is active in her community, like all of this stuff. And she has her own challenges and insecurities and everything else. And so there's part of me that's like, I don't need to add to that with my problems. And so I think as a man, for better or worse, I think it's just to sum it all up again is to protect the people that you care about. Does that help?
That helps. I mean,
yeah.
It's your question.
Yeah.
You've had 11 answers or so.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like a sign off? Am I supposed to like
just do you have like a catchphrase that you
like
wanted?
Cookie crumble.
That's how the fish swim. I don't know. No, you just hold that red button and that ends it. The big red button that says record.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, that one. Yep. Hold it.